extension of the public hearing that we started a couple of weeks ago on zoning amendments. Mr. Giacchio, do you have the notice of the public hearing?
I do. Please take notice that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow will continue a public hearing on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter at Village Hall located at 28 Beekman Avenue in Sleepy Hollow, New York, to hear and consider comments from the members of the public on the proposed local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 450 of the Code of the Village of Sleepy Hollow entitled Zoning, pertaining to the proposed zoning revisions. Proposed revisions are available on the village's website at www.sleepyhollowny.gov or in the village clerk's office. All residents and taxpayers are entitled to attend and be heard at said hearing. Village Hall is accessible to all disabled persons. By order of the Board of Trustees, Paul McCarthy Tompkins, Village Clerk, July 27, 2021.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to address the board on the matter of the public hearing? Yes, sir.
Good evening, all. As a victim of village code changes, I felt compelled to get before you tonight to let you know that I have issues with a lot of the proposed zoning changes. I'm going to ask the board if they are going to consider any of these recommendations.
That's not a right. I do get the text, however. Please continue.
I would ask the board if they consider any of these zoning changes. Their first consideration should be the quality of life of those residents who may be affected by these zoning changes. They need to consider the zoning change that would perhaps make our car wash around the corner extinct. They need to consider the couple who's been living 20 years on the second floor of a mixed-use building, and tomorrow the Arthur Murray Dance Studio opens up upstairs from them. They need to consider the restaurateur who's invested his life savings because there was a lovely 200-foot non-compete in Sleepy Hollow, and tomorrow they have a competitor opening next to them. And the coffee shop owner who goes to the coffee shop in the morning and opens up and sees that the barber shop has got cups of coffee and donuts for sale the next day. Need to consider things like that. They also need to consider, which I just realized, that you're talking about the recommendations are to allow private properties to get involved or have the competitive edge of becoming a floating zone. I think before you even consider that, you need to let the residents on Cortland and Valley and Beekman and River know what's lying beneath a floating zone, because I don't think anybody really understands that. So again, I request that you, if you're going to consider any of these zoning changes, your first consideration should be your existing residents. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the board on the matter of the public hearing? Seeing no one else indicating so, ask the board. We'll give our next regular meeting, run it to the next regular meeting. Adjourn until then?
Sure.
Okay. So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting until 10th, 17th, 24th?
So moved. Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. The public hearing is adjourned. I need to make a public statement. I just need to make sure this gets in the minutes. And that is that the audit has been completed for fiscal year 2020 for the Sleepy Hollow Village Court. It has.
Great.
But
That's great
the court has to send a bunch of stuff off to the state, and among the things they have to send off is a copy of the minutes of our meeting that shows that this was publicly announced in a meeting. So we have a special session at the end of this meeting. So what I'll probably do is say it again during the special session, just in case there's some technical thing we don't quite get. And if none of those work, then on the 24th, I'll say it again.
So, just out of curiosity, what are they auditing, or what have they audited?
It's, I'll get you a copy of it, okay? So you can,
All their financials. yeah.
Okay, it's a financial audit,
It's-
okay.
I wasn't sure if it did anything else.
That's what I just was curious.
Okay,
That's good enough, thank
Mr.
you.
Giacchio. Okay, we've got several items on our agenda this evening for this work session. And first up is Arpa funding. We had talked about what we're going to do with this funding that is coming into the village. The first piece of which we should have received. Do you know if we did?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, but no, I'm not sure.
But just to remind folks, the first piece is $500,000, and we'll be getting another $500,000 12 months from now. So that we've circulated some written documents that explain what we can spend it on and what some of the requirements are. Anybody have any additional thoughts? And I'm going to just leave this on the agenda until we come to it.
Yeah.
We'll just be on every meeting.
Mhm.
Makes good sense. So I had actually sent a note on July 21st to all of you on the village board, just suggesting that we capture these ideas in a table, if you will, with, that would have the type of project, the case, the sort of business case for it. I gave it a categorization and maybe what ARPA category it falls into. Maybe it falls into more than one.
Mm-hmm.
And I had made 2 suggestions, and I'll add a third right now. Suggestion 1 is replacing sidewalks, including curbs, grass, and plantings around the entire perimeter of the Phillipsburg Manor restoration. Mainly, I'm concerned about Route 9, but this would include Bellwood all the way to Pecanico as well, and then down DeVries, to the degree that it's property that the village is responsible for. My assertion would be that this would qualify for ARPA because the site was closed during the pandemic. Granted, it's a private entity. However, because it was closed, there's been an economic impact to Sleepy Hollow. So I think it's a relatively easy case to make. I'd also like to point out, and I mentioned this as well a few weeks ago, funds of this nature are fungible. And so we may have projects that are underway already or that we're going to budget for shortly outside of ARPA that would qualify. And so we should be able to just swap. So what I mean there is I don't know that all of our ideas on how to spend these funds need to necessarily qualify, because we could find other projects that would qualify and we could swap them. Second idea, renovate the triangles along Route 9 in the streets in Phillips Manor. I know there are other entities to work with there, namely Phillips Manor Improvement Association and also the Garden Club there. However, this is a funding concern, so I think it's a matter of communicating with them and offering funding. if it's approved and agreed. Thirdly, I think this is an opportunity to consider extending the, I guess we call it the Riverwalk, also in Phillips Manor, but along the tracks there that kind of currently goes from, roughly the train station to about Hunter Avenue. I think it's an opportunity to look at, can that be extended in both directions? So those 3 items.
Since you raised the Riverwalk, one of the things that was brought up to this board, I think probably a year ago, at least, and I think various other times in the past, is not a rerouting of Riverside, but changing how Riverside comes together, and really 2 parts. One is the just north of the train station. It's very narrow, and it's a 2-way street. And so one of the ideas, the request was, or the suggestion, recommendation, was to make it 1 way going south and 1 way going north, and then as you kind of go up the hill, instead of forcing all the traffic over to Monroe, just taking out part of that island so it kind of comes up and over and comes down again. So it separates the 2 lanes out completely, less chances of people running into each other. We'd have to put in a stop sign there to recognize that as well. And it would have the advantage of giving us enough space to continue the Riverwalk on solid ground. One of the problems we had in the past with the Riverwalk was, in order to keep that road wide enough for 2 cars, for 2-way traffic, any sidewalk built in there would have to be cantilevered, out over the side, and made it horribly expensive to do. Probably really cool to look at, but horribly expensive, which is one of the reasons why the sidewalk has never been brought further south. So I would ask the board to start, think about that, but as a separate thing. I mean, I think that's pretty doable within. There are roads, and I don't think it would be a huge thing to change that.
Yep.
Other thoughts on ARPA? Yes.
I think that it would be good to, first of all, revisit your idea of broadband infrastructure. I really like that idea. Benefits a lot of residents who live in our downtown area. And I think also thinking about other ways that we can improve the quality of life in the downtown. I know we've had some emails with concerns about safety and other things that are going on in the downtown area, and we can kind of think about that as we're considering how to spend these funds. I don't have any answer for that right now, but just something to consider.
Okay. And you're actually tracking all of these, right?
As long as, I'm happy to, if you guys will send me your thoughts.
Yes.
I already have the broadband part, so.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to send me other information, I'll keep it in this table.
I will. I'll think about it a little more, give it a little more substance, and then send
It sounds
to
like
you.
we have time, right?
Yeah, we don't actually have the money yet, and they don't have at least I don't think we have it yet. And I'm pretty sure they don't have a requirement that we spend it real fast, so, but it would be good to get it out there, so.
Also thinking about more our downtown area, again, in our business district. It's a little sad looking, and I know one of the issues that had come up in the past were like the awnings for the businesses, and I think it's been a really long time since a lot of those have been replaced. And I don't think that would be a huge cost, but I think it would have a pretty big impact, so that might be something else to consider.
So just to expand on that comment, many downtowns in the region have facade programs. I mean, we may have had one in the past.
We did.
Yep. So I think it may be worth exploring revisiting that concept, because we do have some, to put it in Rochelle's words, sad facades. And then in that way, at least we could maybe implement regulations on what would be eligible for repair and/or upgrade. Yeah. And I just wanted to add support to the idea of, I mean, at least improving the sidewalk in front of the restoration along Route 9, because that's one of our biggest tourist routes, especially during the Halloween season. And any way that we can just improve safety along that route, as well as, I think really important, just walking there and being next to, heavy truck traffic is a little bit disconcerting. So we might consider bollards, attractive bollards along that sidewalk, and expanding the width. Right now, it's half concrete and half asphalt, which
Yeah.
I don't think is ideal.
Should be all brought to the same
It's
level.
all, yeah, it's all uneven. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Jared, thanks for reminding me, but in my email that I shared again, July 21st, I had put some examples of bollards, because that was, a nice idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, the other thing that I think has been brought to our attention by a few residents is the bridge over Route 9, over the Mechanical Creek in front of the old Dutch church. Seems like folks keep hitting it and knocking some of the, railings out of place. I don't know if you've seen that.
Concrete work, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate, because it's a historic bridge, but it does, it's from Works Progress Administration, but it does seem to need some maintenance. Recognizing that that's New York
It's
State DOT.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a concern, especially since it's one of our more famous landmarks. It's not in good shape.
The actual bridge that would have been the landmark was further up the
Sure.
Mechanico. And I think the foundations on either side, or at least one of them is still there, right, Mr. McCarthy? Maybe both? Yeah. What I thought would be cool is to rebuild the old bridge.
Yeah, I mean, a covered bridge would be
But back
pretty
up
awesome.
where it was, because it would be kind of fun to walk up in there and see that. And then tall enough so that you can ride holding a pumpkin. Okay, if there aren't any more, let's all get ours into Tom. We'll revisit it again at our next regular meeting, and hopefully the money will have arrived. Next up, we need to, in our next meeting, notice for a public hearing, to put a stop sign at Beekman and Cortland, where we have one as a temporary measure. But I think even at this short amount of time, having gone by, it looks like it's been really helpful. So if we're going to make that permanent, we need to do a public hearing, so we'll do that. Okay?
Yes.
We got a request, next up, we got a request for a handicap parking space. Mr. Giacchio, that came in.
Yeah, I think the board has a letter in their packet. There's three. I think what we usually do here is refer to the police chief for recommendation.
Has this sort of request come up before? It sounds like yes.
Yeah,
It has periodically comes up, yeah.
And have we ever granted that sort of thing? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There are factors as to why we wouldn't, but in most cases we accommodate.
And does the space sort of live for as long as the resident resides there? Or does
That's
it become
a very
permanent?
polite way of putting it. But yeah, pretty much. There was one, there was one for a while. I can think of different places where there have been, and then we've removed them later.
Right, because if the person moves, in theory, you don't,
Right.
the need has gone away. Now, and so in this case, the gentleman is requesting it presumably for himself, therefore it's no longer public parking.
No, it's not, he's not entitled to it by himself.
Anybody,
So if
with-
anybody,
Anybody with a seat can park.
anyone
Oh.
with the placard, whatever, they can park there.
got it.
Refer to the chief then, okay? And we'll wait to hear back, and then we'll go from there. All right. Next up, a discussion that we have to have, and unfortunately, I didn't really, unfortunately, we have to have this discussion. Wasn't looking forward to doing this, and that is a mask policy. The CDC is recommending that in counties like Westchester, or specifically in Westchester, that we go back to masks indoors. I know the county has a policy that they're implementing now of going through the entire county workforce and getting a list of everybody who has been vaccinated, everybody who has not been vaccinated. They're going to count people who refuse to answer or won't answer as non-vaccinated people. They're then going to require all non-vaccinated people, or everybody that's in that group, to wear a mask at work the entire time that they're at work. They're going to require masks for anybody who enters a county building, including the vaccinated employees. Vaccinated employees will be allowed to take off the mask at their workstation. They get whatever that may be, a public works facility or an office. Non-vaccinated people will have to wear them the entire time they're there. Vaccinated people then have to put them back on when they go into a public corridor or a public space. So it's back. The cases are starting to rise again in the city and in the state, unfortunately, and it seems like it's the Delta variant, I guess, and whatever the next one is after that. We were, I thought the village, being that we were pretty good about this, and how our response, and I think we really need to look at going back to it, and as much as it may pain us to do. And I would recommend that we do that we follow the county guidelines.
Do we know what our current numbers are?
We're still in single digits. We get an update from the county. We dropped down, at one point I think we had 2, and then it went back up 4 or 5, and it's been kind of going up very, very gradually. So I think we might, Chief, we're at 6? 7? Okay.
Do we know how many of those people are vaccinated?
No, we don't.
I think the issue is even if you're vaccinated, you can carry. And because you're not displaying any type of symptoms and you don't know that you've been exposed, you're not getting tested. But it's certainly, I think, an issue for children under 12, which is my primary concern, unvaccinated children. So adults have a choice to get vaccinated. So I'm concerned with those that don't have a choice, which is kids.
Yeah, and it's easy to get one now. It's not difficult. You can, the choices you have to get one, nobody has an excuse anymore about not being able to get one. I can understand if people have religious or other concerns that guide them in such a way that they believe they should not be vaccinated. And there are people with less rational explanations as well. But it's about the rest of us. And it's about not giving it to everybody else. Yeah, you have a right, just like you have a right not to wear a mask, that store owner has the right to say you can't come in my store. you don't have the right to infect other people.
Yeah, I guess I'm torn. I think it makes sense to go by the CDC guidelines because it's something that's standard and that we can all look towards. So in that case, I mean, for our food pantry, I've told all our volunteers, if you're inside, you need to wear a mask just because the CDC is saying that. But I thought it was very interesting that in New York City, they are saying that if you're not vaccinated, then you don't get to go to, you know, concerts or indoor dining or, and I think that model rewards people for being vaccinated, which I think is the real way that we're gonna keep everybody safe. But once again, I mean, if I go into a store and I see the employees are wearing masks, then I put a mask on. Because if they're doing that, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather not. I am vaccinated. I think that, you know, protects me. I think everybody should get vaccinated, but I do think we should go by the CDC guidelines.
Let me ask it this way, does anybody have an objection to us going back to that or following those guidelines?
I'm not a fan of it. I follow the science like I was told to, and I believe in it. That's why I got vaccinated, so I feel I shouldn't have to wear a mask. I did what I was supposed to.
Yeah.
So if people aren't gonna get vaccinated and they're gonna take that chance, that's on them.
Yeah, one of the issues is we now know that the vaccination, again, following the science, we can still get it.
It's like anything though, it's not going away. It's not gonna go away.
You can still get it, but
It
what
lessens
the
your
U
chances.
does keep you from dying and
Mhm.
most likely going into the hospital.
Yeah.
0.01% of vaccinated people
Right.
end up in the hospital.
Yep.
So it's pretty slim chance. It's hard.
Mayor, I'm with Denise on this. I'm
Yeah.
very reluctant and opposed, but I think for the sake of the village, you know, and assuming it's going to be short-term, I will say if it becomes not short-term, my opinion will probably change.
I'm thinking, you know, what we're talking about here is protecting our employees. There are people who work for the village who are not vaccinated. I don't know the names of any of the folks, but I know from discussions with Mr. Giacchio that there are people that are not vaccinated who work for us. And we should not have our employees out there potentially spreading or being exposed. So I am in favor of saying, hey, look, you don't want to get vaccinated, that's fine, but you're going to wear a mask.
Well, for unvaccinated people, yeah, I would agree with that.
And then they have to wear it the entire time that they're at work.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
would
agree with that 100%.
Yeah. For visitors coming into the building, we don't have a way of necessarily determining if people who come in, you know, did they get vaccinated, do they have the app, are they carrying the card with them? And I think it protects our employees again, because we don't know who those folks are. And it protects other people who come into the building who may come in with somebody who they don't know who they are. So we're all good with masks on the people that are not vaccinated,
Yep.
Yeah.
okay? We should, and I think that should be implemented right away.
Indoors, correct? And municipal properties.
They're at work. So that means if you're a police officer and you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. If you're a DPW worker, you have to wear a mask. If you're a building inspector, you have to wear a mask. So you're not just in the building, it's wherever, when you're working, during working hours, you have to wear a mask.
But that's not a change from our current policy, right? If you're unvaccinated, you have to.
No, we don't have a policy about vaccinated or
okay.
unvaccinated.
And I think, isn't it still, if you're unvaccinated and you're socially distanced, or you're outside, more likely than just socially distanced, like inside, I think you should wear a mask anyway. But if you're unvaccinated and you're outside and you're socially distanced, there's not a reason to have to wear a mask, because you're not going to be close enough to give the virus to anybody, and you're not going to be close enough to get the virus from anybody, unless it's just a matter of making it more simple by saying if you're at work, you have to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm. And I think it is more simple and easier to follow, because the person that works in Kingsland, whether it's a DPW person or the part-timer booth attendant or a police officer, their job doesn't, none of those jobs are ones where you're always socially distant.
No, absolutely. If you cannot socially distance, then you should absolutely wear a mask. If you're a
Mhm.
police officer who has pulled somebody over, yeah,
May I suggest that just write, the effect is follow CDC guidelines for not unvaccinated
Hmm?
people? Just in the resolution, whatever this would, follow the CDC guidelines as for unvaccinated mask wearing. Because yeah, they do have social distancing when not wearing them outdoors listed on their website, and they do constantly update it.
right.
Yeah, I just can't
That just may
imagine
be
someone on a
easier
mower
approach.
having to wear one.
Yeah.
That's kind of silly. You know, one of the parks guys, or, you know what I mean?
And honestly, part of it is the honor system, like you're protecting yourself. If you're unvaccinated, then you should wear a mask when you're close to other people. It doesn't affect me. You might give me COVID and I might test positive, but I'm not gonna have
Mm-hmm.
the symptoms or the hospital stay that somebody who isn't vaccinated would have.
Right, so I think if you do put it in the resolution as per the CDC guidelines or New York State Department of Health guidelines, if it changes, you won't have to pass another resolution to change it. Or when it finally goes away, hopefully it will,
Mhm.
it will dissipate with the guidelines.
Okay. So that's employees, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think I mean, I don't know, I'm not working at Village Hall. I mean, does it make sense to say to people who are coming to visit Village Hall, like our sign says now, if you're not vaccinated, you should wear a mask?
Oh, well, then how do we enforce it?
No.
It's an honor system, it always has been.
It's not going to work because people, there are folks, and we've all heard them, or know them, or both, who say, I'm not going to wear a mask and I'm not getting vaccinated. You can't make me do that.
Right, but they're
And
only.
we can't make them do part of it, but we can make them do the other part.
But they're only hurting themselves in the sense that
They
the
don't
people
think
who
so.
work here, but the people who work here and are vaccinated, then don't have to wear a mask, because if they do get COVID from this person, it's going to be that same case where it's 0.01% who may end up in the hospital, or they had some other underlying health issue that, you know, that 0.01% where the COVID tipped them into the category where they would have to go to the hospital.
Or someone brings it home to their unvaccinated child or niece, and then that child then gets
Yeah.
hospitalized. I think that's the biggest concern. Honestly, for me, we keep not talking about that. I mean, kids aren't authorized to be vaccinated yet, so we have to think about them,
I agree.
which is unfortunate, but
So
It is
when
what it
this
is.
started, we've always been sensitive to the employees working here.
Yep.
And we've always kind of addressed any of their concerns and managed to do that. But one of the things where I can see an issue with having everybody wear masks come to Village Hall is we would have to go back to having somebody in front of at the door, making sure
Yeah.
they wear a mask, making sure
So that-
because if we put a sign there that says wear a mask, people say, I didn't see the sign, you know, so I would go back to having somebody in front at the desk if we do that policy.
I mean, you wouldn't be doing temperature checks and all that stuff.
No, just make sure they have
Okay.
a mask on and where they're going, you know, keep track of where they're going and do contact tracing.
Okay, so then it's two different things. It's the employees who have to wear a mask if they're unvaccinated and not socially distanced and
Or
and
they-
inside.
Decline to identify whether or not they are.
And then, but then you can also still have everybody who comes into Village Hall wear a mask.
Mhm. I think, look, it's, you know, let's be
gonna be
cautious.
enough,
We were
it's one
cautious
building,
before.
so.
Let's be safe.
Yeah.
You know, the people are gonna go home to their kids, and as Jared was just pointing out, you know, the last thing you wanna do, you don't wanna be, oh, well, we had one of the 0.01 people who actually got sick and died, you know, or it's a child of somebody who works here. We all went through this. We all still wear, I mean, you commute to work, you know, it's the Metro North and suddenly you wear a mask.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, you get used to it. It was already there. I don't see how we're infringing on anything. People want to come into Village Hall, then it's a simple thing to do.
Okay, and I think, you know, like the chief said, we can say, follow the CDC guidelines, that can be part of the resolution. Right now, they say wear a mask inside.
Yeah,
Well, depending on where you live.
yeah.
It depends on where you live.
Yeah,
And
but
if
in
your
Westchester
county's been
County,
flagged.
we've been flagged, yeah,
But-
exactly.
And that's
It's
probably
true.
gonna be temporary.
Yeah, it's true.
Let's,
Hopefully,
So I'd like
Let's
to make
hope
sure
so.
that it's our resolution is as fluid as the CDC guidelines are, because they're very
Mhm.
fluid. I'd like to make sure that what we do is as fluid as the CDC is.
well, here's what I would like to do. Let's begin immediately with the employees following the CDC guidelines. Let's go back to masks, mandatory for anybody coming into Village Hall. Those two things are really straightforward.
yeah, and reference, what Denise is saying, reference CDC. What else can we do?
And we have somebody go back and get somebody to be at the front door to monitor and just make sure that everybody coming in has one on. Make sure there's a box there if they don't have one. Okay?
And hopefully it's gone in September.
Oh,
It's
and
not
then-
gone
oh my
already.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to confuse things a little more, but I'm gonna.
Don't do it.
We
Stop.
also have a fire department, ambulance corps, and other volunteers, including board members that are volunteers, so whether or not that.
Whether
these
they're
same
employees or
rules will apply.
volunteers.
And also, beginning in September, we have the after-school program, so that's another, something to think about. Will probably coincide with whatever the school does, but those are things the board should consider too.
Our firefighters and our ambulance corps members, our professionals are just unpaid. And I think the policy should apply to them the same way it does to all of our other paid employees.
I think we had this exact same conversation back when this all started. I think you brought up the fire department and the ambulance corps then,
Deja
and
vu.
said exactly the same thing, yeah.
It's good, I think we have the authority, probably have the authority to do it for everybody, but we're gonna send out a note in everybody's paycheck that they're gonna need to demonstrate whether they've been vaccinated or not. We're gonna need to do that for all volunteers as well, there's probably up over 100 plus, but
Mm-hmm.
that process will be a lot more cumbersome,
Mhm.
just getting a hold of everybody.
That's why there's the fire chief who can disseminate that information, and the ambulance corps chief.
Yep, the captains.
Can I show you my card now?
Yeah,
You can
we
just
show
write
you
it
our
down.
cards now. We're good.
I brought it, I take it with me everywhere.
Hmm?
I will say this, and to the credit of the village, most of our employees are vaccinated, almost all of them.
Good.
There's a handful that are not, but most of them.
And
Glad
just
to hear
a,
that.
just a little side note, Ken, you had mentioned that about people with religious exemptions. Just so you know, the Catholic Church has said that they will not give anybody a religious exemption for a vaccination because there's no reason that you shouldn't get it. It's not made with
Yeah, exactly.
tissue that's inappropriate, comes from fetal, whatever.
Right.
So the Catholic Church has said, no, get a vaccination.
How do I say it without attacking the Catholic Church?
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, like, you know, a lot of people will use it as a religious excuse. I mean, I see it at the preschool with people coming in that they don't wanna get their kids vaccinated, and they'll use some religious excuse. I'm just saying, from my experience, my church has said that they
I
don't,
think it's-
they're not giving religious exemptions for you not to get a vaccine.
It's great. It shows how
Mhm.
all these different organizations are pulling together and they realize what's important. So,
Yeah.
I knew you weren't doing
Okay.
that. I was just using it as an example.
I was trying to stay away from saying something about people who have these truly bizarre theories about chips that get injected with a vaccine so they can be traced all over the place. And they, oh, hang on a second, let me.
I think
You're
they
walking
give
our-
our,
around
You're
with
walking
something
around
that
with your
traces you everywhere you go.
I think they give
And
our
they're on
government too
Facebook.
much credit.
Yeah,
There's no way they could come up
But
with
you're saying they already do that with
with the phone. Yeah.
yeah.
the
I
phone?
mean, you,
Fitbit.
Or they're on Facebook talking about the
Yeah.
No one wants to know where I am anyway, so that doesn't really bother me.
we took the chip out of your phone for that reason. All right, so we're good?
Yes.
Pretty much, let's get the notice out. You'll start with the staff, put the notice out tomorrow to folks.
Yeah, probably be easy.
I mean, you have to work it through, got to talk to the Teamsters, got to talk to the PBA.
Yeah, and we did reach out to our attorney this morning, our labor attorney, so they gave us some advice, so.
Okay.
It'll take a little
Excellent.
time, but we'll start the process.
Well, yeah, start the process. Okay. But we can't, and get somebody for downstairs. Okay, next up, Mr. Giacchio would like to call for a civil service list for the water maintenance worker 2.
This position's been vacant for some time, and now we have some movement in the water department. We really need to fill this position as soon as possible.
Okay.
So.
Is that the position that we couldn't get
No,
before?
No, it's not.
Okay,
It's another vacancy.
okay.
We're still looking for that position.
Is there anybody on the list that's
Apparently,
even qualified?
No, there's no list. There's one person on the list.
That's the
and he
same
was not
guy?
interested. They are giving the test in September, so
Okay.
we'll have an opportunity there. My hopes is that somebody on this list will have certain certifications that the village needs for certain operations, so there's another reason why we should hire this person, to see if they have those certifications.
Can
It's
I,
kind of a dual thing, a civil service and health department. There's health department certifications that are required for the position, but then there's also a civil service exam that's also required. We haven't been able to find someone with both of those, either civil service and certification.
let me ask you a question. So if we can't find anybody that doesn't have the right certifications, can we, I don't even know if this is a thing, but is there like an inter-municipal agreement that you could do with someone from another village or town that has the same certifications that could cover?
We're exploring that, right now.
And that raises a bigger issue anyway, and that is what could happen with combining our water departments, or at least portions of our water departments, with other municipalities. And there's been various studies and proposals to do that. And the obvious one is the pump stations. Briarcliff's pump station, which is next to Terrytown's, which is next to ours, is like you run the whole thing off your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really amazing. And has the capacity, I mean, it was really overbuilt, and so it has the capacity to actually could run ours and Terrytown's, I believe. All three of us could run through that one station. You could, Terrytown Station is not in good shape, and they need to do something about that. And ours is fine. You know, it's
Ours is
not
dated.
super modern, yeah. But you could keep
Be a
ours as a
backup.
backup,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
You could,
well, that's the point of the tri-village order.
yeah, and I think we really need to get serious about this, and, because what we get out of it is if we don't need all of these people in the water department, or need as many, we've got all kinds of other stuff we can have people do. You know, you got a bunch of skilled guys that could focus on other projects in the village. And so I'd really like to, I'm not sure where Terrytown is on this, and they've always been very reluctant, but Briarcliff was always fairly enthusiastic, I think in part because it cost them a fortune to build it, and so they're looking for some help on.
So we would pay into some of that capital cost? Is that what the thinking is
We'd have to
on that?
figure out something that was fair.
For the
We'd have to
new
pay for
board
part of the
members,
services there.
we're in process of a study that's being done for the tri-village water system study, and which is almost completed. I've seen a draft of it.
Mhm.
And what they do look at is the fiscal impact for each of the three villages and how it's fairly
Mhm.
divvied up. Obviously, if we use Briarcliff's pump station, they're putting in the bulk of the capital
Mhm.
equity, and so we have to figure out how to fairly for the two other villages that.
I think it was in very simple terms, you know, if we're gonna, if you bought the car and you're paying for it, and you're gonna share it with us, it's not fair for us to just pay for gas. You know, you've got that capital cost, so it's not the ongoing operations. Our ongoing operation costs will probably go down simply because we don't have people running the pump station all the time. So there would have to be, in order to make it fair, there'd have to be some kind of way of sharing in some portion of that capital cost.
Yeah, when is that study complete?
In the fall, maybe as early as September. I mean, we have a draft, but I think there was some back and forth with the three villages with the consultant, so I'm not sure if it's ready for final,
Mhm.
hopefully in the fall.
Okay? All right, so we'll call for the list, and we'll look forward to the report the study being complete. Go from there. Next up, we have a request for two of our employees. I think it's both from the clerk's office to go to a night, the clerk and the deputy clerk to attend a NICOM conference in Saratoga.
There's also Sarah. I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Sarah,
also Sarah.
It might be on the next page.
Oh, right.
No, it's
I'm
on the
so
next
sorry.
paragraph.
Sarah, I didn't mean to. And the treasurer, okay, so three of our staff. As you know, I'm a big fan of these conferences. I think staff should always go. It's an opportunity for them to learn stuff. It's even more important because it's an opportunity for them to schmooze with other people that do what they do, who come from the same size, you know, and that only comes, you only really get that opportunity in a multi-day conference where you're staying in the same place as other people. So the cost is minor. I would recommend that we approve this request. And if everybody's good with that, we'll do it next, on the next regular meeting. Right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Next up, this is kind of interesting, the parklet or plaza, or whatever we're gonna call the intersection of Cortlandt and Beekman, we already have a request to use the space. A nearby business owner wants to do an activity for kids in the area. I think you all saw the correspondence for that. And I thought that sounded really cool.
I think it's great.
Use the space. It's not, it's not particularly attractive yet, but somebody's already seeing the possibilities, and I think that's just great.
Mhm.
So I would like to approve that request. Anybody have any issues with that?
I'm in favor of it myself too, but I do wonder, do we need better barriers along the streets? If these are gonna be little kids, I envision somebody running into the street. And
Well,
I-
hopefully their parents are there. And there
And
will
fast.
be, I mean, but, people walk along the sidewalk all the time. You never know what a kid's gonna do. But there are gonna be the planters on the street ends of it, at least, at that point. And then I think also, having them, they probably need to get some type of street vendor insurance that we usually require when we have our street fair, which is pretty cheap, and just names us and the police department as co-insured. It's like $50.
And I think that we'd ask the chief to coordinate that and make sure that it's adequate,
Mhm.
with Mr. Tompkins.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, I'm in favor of it. I just wanna make sure the kids are kept in
Mhm.
line.
It's Diana Loha's been sort of interested in programming this space, and she could potentially coordinate with this business owner. So I think it is great to have a, downtown business sponsoring an event like this. I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Just gonna add her business is great.
Where
Cut.
is it exactly?
It's right on the corner.
It is right on the corner.
I've gotten
Okay.
balloons for lacrosse and
Oh, very
football
cool.
from her. She's
She's
really
really
good.
All right,
And
I'll
she's a
stop
Sleepy
by.
Hollow graduate.
Oh, very nice.
And if it brings her a little more business, then that's so much the
It's
better.
good. Yeah.
Okay, did we have a time? I think it was kind of open. I would like to, we have a special session anyway, so I'd like to approve that if we could so
Yeah.
we're not waiting till the end of the month. I don't know,
Oh,
maybe it
right.
will be at the end of the month anyway, but the opportunity to then move forward with that.
Can I ask another favor? Can you approve this resolution for the NICOM? If you don't
So
mind.
they can book it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have to book the hotel and get the registration.
okay. So we'll put that on. It's just that the person, Leska is given the go-ahead to go ahead and plan and work it out, make sure that it's coordinated with the chief and with DPW, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody will say it's so moved and we're good, but we're not there yet. All right, great. We have a request to create a working group. I think it sounds better than committee. Committees are where things are sent to die,
Okay. No, we don't want this to die.
Death by committee.
especially if we
Yeah.
called it a bipartisan committee. Then we know
Death-
it's, whatever it is,
death
it's
by
going to
committee.
die.
Yeah.
But to create a working group to look at key performance indicators. So, Tom, it comes from you, so.
Yep, key performance indicators. I mean, these are common, in business. Metrics, measures that you track, that when you look back on it will tell you, are you improving, are you not improving, what can you improve upon, where can you perhaps find some efficiencies or make some investments to help your business, or in this case, the municipality. And I did some research, and I even have a printed list, which I'm not going to bore you guys with tonight, but there are lots of municipalities that have KPIs, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of them, different metrics. I don't recommend that we go that far. I think 1 or 2 per department would be fine. But I think at this point, it's just a matter of creating the working group and then working with Mr. Giacchio and department heads to, to find the way forward. That's my proposal, and I will volunteer to be on that working group.
You're now the chair.
I'm happy to help you if you need help.
Yeah.
Let's, if you want to participate in that, let Tom know.
Yep.
And look forward to hearing back.
I wonder if you might want to reach out to Sam, because he had been involved in something, a little similar.
Yeah, it's in his ballpark, yeah.
So, I'm not volunteering him, I'm just saying you might want to know about it, so.
Cool. All right, sounds good. Anthony, I'll shoot you a note in the coming days just to arrange a time to talk.
Okay, good. I have one thing I wanted to add to the discussion list before we go. I asked for a special session. Really 2 things. One is 228 North Washington, the old VFW building, is putting in an application for a liquor license. It's an event space. Well, it will be an event space. That's what they're looking to do there. We have to comment on that to the state, saying we're opposed, we're for it, whatever. I think we're for it because we want to see that space, like other empty spaces or unused spaces, underutilized spaces, more alive and more activity there. I think it's good for the neighborhood, good for the village. There's a couple of points that we would need to raise with that, and they are, they have a temporary C of O right now. It runs out in, I believe, October. Correct, Mr. McCarthy? Sometime this fall. At least they have a temporary, they don't have a permit. So there also is still something on the books about how close you can be with a liquor license to another business.
Until the zoning is changed?
No,
Not on the,
Sean says.
state liquor, oh, okay. I was thinking that we had gotten, okay, good. So they need to know that, there was a note when they were granted their zoning to create this as an event space, the variance by the zoning board. Mr. McCarthy went back and looked at the minutes of that meeting, and in it there's a question from the chair to the applicant saying, are you going to have a liquor license, or are you going to apply for a liquor license, something like that? And the answer was, we expect it from whoever the vendors are. Like, we're not going to, we'll have caterers bring in the food. So we'll have them we're expecting that they will be the ones who will provide beverages as well. So that's what was said in the minutes, that it was going to be, they expected the caterer, the outside vendors to be the ones that do it. But it doesn't say that they're not allowed to apply on their own. It doesn't say that they never would.
And that was a while ago,
just kind of
too.
like
They could
that's
change
the,
their mind.
Yeah.
and to me,
Yeah,
it's
how-
like, look, it makes
How
sense.
long ago was that? How long ago?
3 years.
3 years ago?
Yeah. So to me, it's like, look, I'd like to, Clinton is the one who responds on this. I think the response from the village should be, yes, we are in favor of this application. We'd like to see you grant it. Here's 3 things, or here's at least the first 2 that they need to know about. So the 500 feet, the distance, and the C of O. And, just here's, we want to bring this to your attention.
I think it's great. It's really tough to find event space. in our two villages.
Yeah.
So it's nice that this is gonna be an option.
Right.
Yeah.
You saw what happened with the Wells in their party room. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, until COVID, it would seem to be booked a lot.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
but it's a certain size. So, okay, so I'll tell Clint to go ahead with that. That's great. We are going to be, the final discussion item is we will be applying for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative again, the DRI.
Yep.
Just a reminder, that's a grant. It's a $10 million grant that comes from the state that is very competitive. We've applied several times now, but it's a pretty phenomenal thing. They make you work with, they don't give you the money, they make you work with planners that they pick to help you decide how to best do it. So they really want to make sure that and it's an economic development grant. So it's about, we've always applied for our downtown, want to apply again. I think it's important to apply every time, keep so they know you're still there. But I think we've had a good shot in the past, and I think we'd have a good shot again now. One of the reason that I'm bringing it up now is it's due in the middle of September. The application has to be in. We need to have a public session, at least one, to hear from our neighbors what they think the DRI could do, or what concerns they have, and how they'd like to see things implemented. So what I'm going to do is schedule something. It's not a public hearing. It's a public session. We invite people in, and we'd like to do it sometime, get a notice out sometime in the next week, so that we have a session or two or whatever, starting in now in August.
Yep.
I think we have a pretty good idea, having come through the comprehensive plan, done DRIs before, but it's a requirement, and it's also an opportunity to refresh our thinking and hear from our neighbors.
Mayor, I think that's a great idea. And actually, as I was doing the research on KPIs, it occurred to me that we might have some already identified in the comprehensive plan, and we don't. But the end of the plan has pages and pages, dozens of pages of action items that are recommended, and I would imagine a lot of those action items would fall under, a DRI initiative.
Yeah, and it would be thrilling to get it.
In the past, when you've applied and become a finalist, I mean, and have you gone up to present?
Yep.
The mayor does? Okay. Interesting.
That's not why we didn't get it. Sometimes the thought balloon above your head.
You could
I
see
can
it?
Read it, yeah.
You could read it? This one had a lot of different characters, hashtag, exclamation point, @ sign. I mean, I would be interested in I've done them 4 times for another municipality. And yeah, we could talk about that maybe offline. I'd be interested in
Yep.
doing that.
We want to put together a
It's a-
good one. We want to win.
It's a wonderful experience to go and meet with the SD.
Yeah, it's like doing some of the CFA stuff, where you're in a room and you realize, and somebody says, "Ken, what about?" And, yes, there's
Yeah.
somebody. It's not all people that don't know who we are. Okay,
Cool.
so we'll get that set up.
It's great.
All right, that's our discussion items. We have some items that we need to take care of, and I'd like a motion to go into special session.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? This special session of the Board of Trustees, Sleepy Hollow called to consider 3 resolutions. The first one is to approve a NICOM training. We actually have that one in writing. Can someone read that?
I'll take it. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow to approve NICOM training. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village clerk, Paula McCarthy Tompkins, and deputy clerk, Joan Bucci, to attend the annual NICOM Fall Training in Saratoga, New York, from September 20th to September 23rd, 2021, not to exceed the cost of $3,000. And be it resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village treasurer, Sarah DiGiacomo, to attend the annual NICOM Fall Training in Saratoga, New York, from September 20th to September 24th, 2021, not to exceed the cost of $1,900. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Resolution's approved. The next one is a resolution allowing Waleska, the owner of D&W Magical Events and Party Store here in Sleepy Hollow, to go forward with planning and implementing an event for kids in the newly created Parklet Plaza, whatever we want to end up calling it, at the top of Cortlandt and Beekman, at the intersection of Cortlandt and Beekman, to be coordinated with Chief Boetti and with Earl Tompkins. Somebody so moved?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, resolution's approved. And we have one more, which is also written down already.
Two more.
Wait a minute, wait a
We
minute.
have two more, yeah.
No, we're, the agreement one is, I'm pulling that.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning.
Which
So-
one?
Uh,
Oh,
The civil service list.
Oh, there it is.
Just hang on to the other one for now. We'll come back to it in
All right,
a couple of weeks.
I could take resolution 2.
Okay.
It's a resolution directing the village clerk to request a certified copy of the civil service list. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow hereby directs the village clerk to request a certified copy of the civil service list for the position of water maintenance worker grade 2 from the Westchester County Department of Human Resources. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? The resolution is approved. And that concludes our business in the special session. Can I get a motion to close the special session?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we're back in our work session. And I believe our business for the evening is complete. So thank you and good night.